Okay, so I made the mistake of diving into the news first thing in the morning before I finished my coffee and before I remembered I had a client call at 9 a.m. First, it was Twitter, one headline after the other, shouting like drunk neighbors at 3 a.m. And then I hit play on the daily. It's the first podcast in my queue. And I let it run while I tried to piece together my day.
From the New York Times, I'm Rachel Abrams, and this is The Daily.
27 minutes, that's how long I sat there, coffee going cold in my hand, staring at nothing while the words poured in like cheap vodka down the throat of a broke drunk. There's no resistance, just straight into the bloodstream. I listened as federal law enforcement, flooding neighborhoods, DEA, Homeland Security, FBI, Border Patrol, stopping people on the street, asking people for IDs like it was East Berlin, only with shinier logos and newer trucks. It was like dystopia by committee. And then whiplash, right? I had to flip on the charm mode for a discovery call with a yoga and activewear client. Good people, sustainable fabrics, proceeds to charity, mood boards quoting Gwyneth Paltrow like scripture. And I sold it, engaged, upbeat, painting the vision. Like I just came back from a week-long meditation retreat instead of drinking the morning news straight like cheap liquor. And then I hung up and I saw that the daily was still paused on my screen and had one of those what the fuck just happened moments. How do you pivot from the country might be burning to let's talk about color palettes and breathable leggings without feeling like you've lost your goddamn mind? And I feel like that's the rhythm now, That's the whiplash that we're all facing. It's the emotional split screen. It's been the soundtrack for the last few years, and maybe it's the actual job description of 2025 for most of us. Maintaining, manufacturing, authentic enthusiasm while the floorboards of your life or the whole goddamn world are on fire. And that's what we're talking about today. My name is Patrick Four, and this is the Terrible Photographer podcast, where we have honest conversations about creativity, identity, and finding your voice. Today's episode is number 23. We've made it to 23, and I'm calling it We Work, Rome Burns. How to keep creating while everything feels like it's falling apart. Okay, so before we get started, I just wanted to thank all of you who have left comments and who have rated. It's really cool, seriously. And along with that, I'm looking for some feedback. I'm inviting you, the listener, to help shape the future direction of the Terrible Photographer podcast. How cool is that? It's a simple survey. It's a Google form. It's completely secure. You don't have to leave your name or sign up for anything. It takes only 2 minutes. And it's just questions about the kind of thing that you like or don't like hearing, and your preferences about podcast length and more. We're only at 23 episodes, which is crazy because it feels like a lot more some days and a lot less some days. And the podcast is still in its infancy. We're still wearing diapers over here. Okay, don't make it weird. You know what I mean. Anyway, I'm an idiot. But yeah, check the show notes for the link. Your feedback is appreciated. Okay, enough with this foolishness. Let's get on with the episode. Act 1, the emotional gear shift. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you had to put on your professional face when your personal reality was a complete shit show? Maybe it was taking engagement photos an hour after having a big fight with your spouse. Maybe it was photographing a luxury wedding when you were 3 months behind on rent. Maybe it was shooting corporate headshots the day after a family emergency. And I think that we don't talk about this stuff enough in creative fields. The emotional labor of compartmentalization, the way that you have to perform competence and enthusiasm regardless of what's actually happening in your life. I have a photographer friend who shot a family portrait session just 2 days after finding out that his dad had life-threatening cancer. And this diagnosis wasn't a vague, let's wait and see. It was the kind of news that makes the air feel heavier, that rearranges your sense of time. And the shoot itself should have been easy for him. A nice family, beautiful kids, golden hour light on the beach. The kind of job that he could normally do half asleep. But that particular day, everything felt like it was moving through wet cement. And there were moments where he would be lining up a shot and out of nowhere, he would think about growing up with his own dad. The fishing trips, the night movie marathons, the dumb inside jokes that they still shared. And he'd feel that lump rise in his throat. A tear would start to form, and he would have to swallow it back before it showed on his face. And maybe that's why, instead of coasting through, he worked actually even harder. He found himself lingering on the shots of the father with his kids, looking for those fleeting gestures of connection, the way the hand rested on the shoulder, the quiet laugh that they shared, because in real time, he was feeling just how temporary it all is. And still he kept going. He got the kids to laugh. He cracked jokes. He adjusted their hair, chased the light. And from the outside, he looked exactly like the photographer that they hired. But inside, he was doing the constant math of holding it together while the ground had already started to give way beneath him. And here's the part that messes with your head. None of the care he gave that family was fake. He wanted to actually give them great photos. He was engaged, he was present, making good work. But layered underneath every frame was the weight of something that had nothing to do with shutter speed or aperture or composition. It was a private grief running parallel to the job at hand. Last year, I had a shoot that still makes me laugh in this sort of dark, cosmic sort of way. Portraits for this real estate investor, big shot. The kind of guy LinkedIn probably dreams about at night. Self-made, talks fast, smiles big. A Grant Cardone type of guy. Big ego, bigger checkbook. Not the kind of guy that I would grab a beer with. But he pulls up in this brand new BMW M5. Beautiful car. Worth about $120,000. It's both beautiful and ridiculous. And this guy is grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. Check it out, he says. Just bought it 2 days ago. He swings the door open like he's revealing some sort of magic trick. Soft, beautiful camel leather. Perfect stitching. The faint smell of money well spent. And we burned 15 minutes. He shows me every feature. Tells me how fast it goes. How smooth it rides. And then we shift to business, where he tells me business is booming. He has new markets and big plans. He wants to get into public speaking, maybe write a book. And I stand there nodding the whole. I have last year's BMW model parked in my driveway at home, but I just decided to bring my 4-year-old Subaru to the shoot for fun. But in reality, I'm actually doing some grocery math in my head, trying to figure out if I can make it to Friday without putting it on the credit card. And the cognitive dissonance was absurd, right? Like, I'm photographing a man whose financial dreams are purring 10 feet away in a parking lot, while mine were being held together with duct tape, a prayer, whatever caffeine that I could afford. And here's the thing that should bother me, but doesn't. I didn't hate the dude for it. And if anything, it made me work a little harder. Because if this guy could build his thing from scratch, maybe I could too. And maybe the best shot that I had was to make him look like a goddamn Fortune 500 cover story. Even if my bank account looked like the aftermath of a bar fight. I have a friend, Samantha, who had been a wedding photographer for nearly a decade. She knew how to manage a wedding party running an hour late, how to wrangle drunk groomsmen into formation, how to shoot through a rainstorm without letting the couple see her flinch. And her calendar was booked solid for the next 3 months. New York, Lake Como, Napa, the kind of schedule that most photographers dream about. But the night before one of those weddings, she and her husband sat across from each other at the kitchen table and decided that their marriage was over. And there's no yelling, there's no slam doors, just the quiet, exhausted acknowledgement that they could not keep going. And the next morning, she did what she always did. She showed up. She packed her gear. She dusted off her lenses. And she stepped into somebody else's love story. Because her couples had nothing to do with her marriage ending. They had trusted her to document their day. And she was not about to let them down. And during the vows, she felt the tears start before she could stop them. And not in this like cinematic slow motion kind, like the kind that burn behind your eyes and threaten to spill over at the worst possible time. And it was cruel. It was cosmically cruel. It was almost sadistic to have to stand there and document someone else's, quote, forever, less than 12 hours after ending her own. And she grieved in real time as they promised each other a life she was no longer going to have. And every word in that moment felt like it was meant for her. But like the universe just decided to rub it in. And yet, somewhere between the laughter and the trembling voices, she felt something shift. Not for them. She had no doubt that they would be fine. But for herself. And it was proof that love wasn't extinct. That the wreckage of one marriage didn't mean the institution itself was beyond repair. It didn't erase the loss, but it cracked open the smallest window of belief that maybe someday she could choose to be chosen again, and that love could still exist for her, even if it wasn't today. Look, this emotional whiplash is not new. We just pretend like it is. You know, during World War II, people still got married. They still had portraits taken. During the Great Depression, during the Civil Rights Movement, during every major upheaval in human history, people, they kept creating. They kept celebrating. They kept documenting life even when life felt impossibly fragile. Maybe especially when life felt impossibly fragile. And there's something both absurd and profound about this. The audacity for beauty and celebration and ordinary joy, especially when everything feels uncertain. Act 2, the Compartmentalization Framework. So I've been thinking about this for the past few weeks as I'm trying to prepare for this episode. And I've been trying to understand how to navigate this constant emotional gear shifting. And I think there are 3 layers of reality that us as not just creative professionals, but really everybody have to hold simultaneously. First, there's layer 1, personal reality. What's actually happening in your life? It's the relationship stress, the financial pressure, the family drama, the existential dread about the state of the world. And then there's layer 2, professional reality. The immediate creative challenge in front of you. For photographers, that's the light, the composition, the client needs, the technical execution. This is the craft layer, and it's real too. And for you who are not photographers, it could be about the hardest parts of your job, right? Giving the presentation, having the tough conversation, trying to sell an idea to your boss or to your clients. Then there's layer 3, the performance reality. And this is the emotional energy that you need to project to do your job effectively. And this applies to everyone. Confidence and enthusiasm and creative vision and problem-solving ability. And most people think layer 3 is fake, but I don't think that's right. It's not fake. It's selective. You're choosing which parts of yourself to amplify in the service of the work. And when my friend was photographing that family portrait session 2 days after his dad's cancer diagnosis, every ounce of care he poured into those images was real. The way he chased the light, adjusted the framing, worked to capture genuine smiles. All of it came from a true and honest place. He wasn't phoning it in. If anything, he worked even harder, lingering on the moments between the father and his kids, because he could feel in real time how temporary all of this is. And the fact that he didn't tell the family what was happening in his own life, that was just pure professionalism. And there's wisdom in knowing that authenticity doesn't require you to hand someone your whole story. It's about showing up fully for what's needed in the moment, bringing the parts of yourself that serve the work, and keeping the rest where it belongs now. I have another friend who's an ER nurse, and she once told me the hardest part of the job isn't the medical work. It's switching between the different versions of herself that the job demands. In one moment, she's racing to keep someone alive, hyper-focused on vitals, sterile technique, rapid decisions. And in the next moment, she's walking into the waiting room to calmly and warmly explain to a family what's happening. And those are completely different modes. And they're both real and they're both necessary. And you can't do the job without being able to flip that switch instantly. And I think creative work asks for the same skill sometimes. Some moments demand your problem-solving side, your troubleshooting lighting, you're solving production issues, you're delivering exactly what the client is asking for. But others require your more human side. You're noticing the way the father looks at his kid or how the light hits someone's face when they're laughing. And the real challenge is moving between these modes without losing the thread of who you are. But let's be honest about the toll that this takes. Constant compartmentalization is exhausting. Switching between excited creative professional and anxious human being multiple times a day, for several days sometimes, or for years, that shit wears you down. And I've noticed it most at the end of long shoot days. There's not so much a physical exhaustion, but a more of an emotional one or social one. Like, I've been performing multiple roles simultaneously, and my nervous system just needs time to integrate all these different versions of myself that I've been throughout the day. And I think that there's this weird guilt that comes with it. Like, am I being genuine if I can be genuinely excited about this yoga campaign while also genuinely worried about the state of our country? And the answer is, I think yes. Human beings are, in fact, complex enough to hold multiple realities simultaneously. And the problem isn't that we compartmentalize. The problem is that we judge ourselves for it. Okay, Act 3. The strange comfort of the craft. I think there's something profoundly groundbreaking about focusing on the work when everything else feels chaotic. And I don't think it's escapism. I don't think it's burying our heads in the sand. I don't think it's being complacent or apathetic. But I view it as an anchor. So there's this philosopher that I love. His name is Ram Dass. And he spent his whole life exploring consciousness and presence. And he talked about this beautifully, I think. He says something that's so simple but profound. He says, just quote, "Be here now." But be here, be present now. Whatever is in front of you. And when I'm in the middle of a hard shoot, a complicated shoot, trying to solve the puzzle of how to complete a job, how to keep everyone happy, the external noise of the situation often seems to quiet down. Not because I'm ignoring it, but because I'm actually engaged in something that requires my full attention and has a clear outcome. And what I like about this is that there's order in the chaos, you know? There's variables that I can actually control. There's problems that I can actually solve. I can't solve democracy. I can't solve immigration. I can't solve these injustices. But what I can solve is what is in front of me. Again, I don't think that's avoidance. And maybe it's actually resistance. Maybe actually doing the work and creating something beautiful, creating something honest when the world feels unstable is its own form of protest against the fear, against the despair, against the injustice. There's a thinker writer, philosopher Noam Chomsky, who has spent decades analyzing systems of power, and he reminds us that the general population, most people, don't know what's happening, and it doesn't even know that it doesn't even know. But I think creative work, real creative work, is about actually paying fucking attention. It's about seeing clearly, about documenting what's actually happening, whether that's the light hitting a family's face or the truth of a moment between two people. And every time you frame a shot, every time you lift the camera to your face, you're betting on continuity. You're betting on connection, on the possibility that beauty and truth, they still fucking matter. Here's something that I've actually started to appreciate a lot more. I've really started to appreciate the clients who hire photographers during uncertain times like these. In the midst of tariffs, in the midst of an economy that feels uncertain and unpredictable, I feel like it's an act of faith. They're saying, despite everything that's happening, I still believe my business matters, or I still believe my wedding matters. I still believe that my family photos matter. And I think they're right. They do matter. Not because it's more important than the larger systemic issues going on, but because it's the scale at which most human meaning actually happens. It's one relationship at a time. It's one family at a time. One small business at a time. And my yoga wear client isn't naive for caring about sustainable fashion while democracy feels a little fragile right now. They're choosing to build something better within the system they can actually influence. And hiring me to help tell that story, that's an act of defiance, an act of faith in the future. Look, here's something that I need to say directly, because I think a lot of us, no matter what your career, whether you're a photographer, you're a choir director, you're a teacher, you're a therapist, you're a CEO, a lot of us are carrying guilt we don't even realize that we're carrying. Look, you have permission to laugh at dinner with friends while democracy feels a little fragile. You have permission to celebrate your small wins while we're staying aware of these larger systemic struggles. You have permission to find joy in your work, in your relationships, in your daily life, not despite what's happening in the world, but because of it. Bessel van der Kolk, who spent years, decades, studying trauma in the brain, discovered something crucial about what he calls collective trauma. The kind that most of us are experiencing, I think, right now. And even though we're not living through this crisis directly, for most of us, fortunately, we are witnessing it constantly, every single day. Through the news alerts, through social media, through conversations with friends, through podcasts like this. And van der Kolk's research shows that our nervous system doesn't distinguish between trauma that we experience and trauma that we witness. There is a similar stress response either way. And when entire populations are exposed to ongoing crisis, Even from a distance, our collective nervous system starts to dysregulate. We become hypervigilant, scanning for threats, unable to fully rest. And here's the part that matters, I think. Maintaining joy, connection, and normal life patterns isn't selfish indulgence. It's neurological necessity. Van der Kolk found that people who deliberately engage with beauty and laughter and social connection during these times of collective stress actually help stabilize not just our own nervous systems, but our communities that we're engaged in. And so when you're out with friends getting tacos, or you celebrate a work win, when you allow yourself to be fully present for these good moments, you're not ignoring the suffering around the world. You're modeling resistance. Maybe, more importantly, you're refusing to let fear dictate how you engage with life. Every time that you choose connection over isolation, joy over despair, presence over paralysis, you're saying no to the forces that profit from keeping people scared, disconnected, and unable to think clearly. And please hear me, guys, that this isn't about toxic positivity. I hate that shit. It's not about pretending that everything is hunky fucking dory. It's about recognizing that your capacity to stay engaged, to keep creating, to maintain your humanity is crucial. That's exactly what the world needs from you, from us right now. So, back to my boy Ram Dass, who spent years teaching about what he called being nobody, going nowhere. And I love this idea. It's this idea that you can be fully engaged with what's in front of you without needing to fix everything or be everything to everyone. And I think that there's profound freedom in this. You can be genuinely concerned about social justice and genuinely excited about the success of your client's business, or the smiles of a mom seeing her baby's prints for the first time. You can worry about the future of democracy and care deeply about getting the lighting right for someone's headshots. You can feel overwhelmed by the chaos and find meaning in showing up to work and doing a great job. No matter if you're teaching 8th grade students in Ohio or working on the front lines of protecting voting rights in Texas. These are not contradictions. These are the full range of the human experience. Joseph Campbell wrote, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasures that you seek." And maybe the cave that we all fear to enter is the one where we admit that life is complex enough to require our full attention on multiple levels simultaneously. Look, the world needs people like you and needs people like me who can hold that complexity, that tension, who can be present for the work in front of us while remaining aware of larger contexts. And that's not compartmentalization as avoidance. That's what Chomsky would call intellectual self-defense. The ability to think clearly about what's in your sphere of influence without being paralyzed by what isn't. Look, some days, what matters most is documenting someone's most important day. Some days, what matters is staying informed about democracy under threat. Some days, what matters is both in rapid succession, with enough grace to do justice to each. And the skill isn't choosing between them. The skill is what Ram Dass called loving awareness. It's moving between realities without losing your humanity in the process. Back to Joseph Campbell, who reminds us that a hero is someone who has given his or her life to something bigger than oneself. And maybe heroism for creative professionals isn't the grand gestures. Maybe it's the daily practice of just showing up fully for whatever requires your attention, whether that's a client's vision or it's the state of the world. But both matter. Please hear me. Both deserve your best thinking. And the challenge is developing the emotional flexibility to toggle between them without losing yourself in the process. Okay, it's our light leak challenge. We've made it. Whew, just take a breath, breathe. I want you to ask yourself these questions. What's the most jarring emotional gear shift you've had to make recently between a personal reality and a professional demand? When has focusing on craft actually helped you process something difficult you were experiencing personally? What permission do you need to give yourself about caring about your work, even when it feels small compared to the larger problems the world faces? And I want to talk to photographers specifically for this moment. I want you to think about the last time that you had to photograph joy while experiencing pain. How did you navigate that? What's your strategy for being present for clients when your own personal life sucks? How do you honor both your craft and your humanity without sacrificing each other? I want to hear your stories about professional compartmentalization. And this isn't trauma bonding, but as recognition that this is a skill that we all develop, but rarely discuss. Because once we start naming this pattern, I think we get better at it. We can start to develop strategies for moving between realities with more grace and less guilt. And I think this applies whether you're managing a team while dealing with personal stress, you're teaching kids while processing your own anxiety about the future, you're providing healthcare while worried about the systemic healthcare collapse, creating art while navigating financial insecurity, you're building a business while questioning capitalism. And this pattern is always the same. How do you show up fully for work that's in front of you while carrying awareness of everything else that's happening? I want to close by talking about this interview that I had a few weeks ago with another photography podcaster. He asked me this question that I've been thinking about for the past couple of weeks. He asked me this. He goes, "Patrick, aren't you afraid that one of your clients will hear this?" And I actually answered without hesitation. I said, absolutely not. In fact, I want them to hear it. I want them to understand the humanity of people performing this work. I want them to know how much we care about this craft, how seriously we take their projects, and how much emotional labor goes into showing up fully for their vision or their wedding day or whatever they have going on while managing everything else that's happening in our own lives. Because here's what I've learned. The clients worth working with don't want robots. They want humans who can, yes, be professional without being fake, but who can focus on their needs without pretending the rest of the world doesn't exist. And the work that we do, whether we're documenting love, building brands, photographing the bonds between a mother and her children, creating beauty, selling products, that's not separate from engaging with the larger systemic problems. It's part of how we stay human enough to keep engaging with those larger problems. Look, Rome has been burning in various ways throughout human history. This isn't new. This is not new. And throughout this history, I guarantee you, people have kept creating. They have kept celebrating. They have kept documenting what matters to them. Not because they're oblivious to the burning, but because creativity is how humans process chaos and find meaning within it. So yes, look, we keep photographing yoga campaigns while democracy feels a little fragile. We keep shooting weddings while our own relationships require a lot of work. We keep making images that matter to people while staying aware of everything that's happening beyond my camera's frame. Because the alternative is shutting down. It's checking out. It's waiting for the world to stabilize before caring about anything. And that's not resistance, my friends. That's just surrender. And I'm not ready to surrender yet. I don't know about you. So that's all I have. Stay curious, stay courageous, stay human, and yeah, stay terrible.